to lose it. Even the Jedi.
The Jedi use their power for good.
Good is a point of view, Anakin. The Sith and the Jedi are similar in almost every way, including their quest for greater power.
The Sith rely on their passion for their strength. They think inwards, only about themselves.
And the Jedi don't.
The Jedi are selfless. They only care about others.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you. It's a Sith legend. Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midichlorians to create life. He had such a knowledge of the dark side, he could even keep the ones he cared about from dying.
He could actually save people from death.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
What happened to him?
He became so powerful. The only thing he was afraid of was losing his power, which eventually, of course, he did. Unfortunately, he taught his apprentice everything he knew. Then his apprentice killed him in his sleep. Ironic. He could save others from death, but not himself.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Not from a Jedi.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News. I am one of your two co-hosts, Matt. Alongside me is Lauren, and this episode is kicking off our Star Wars month. Let's go, Star Wars. Yes, the whole month of May is going to be Star Wars, so today we're going to kick it off with the Prequel Trilogy, everybody's favorite, as we all know. But first, some things that we got to go over. Please go ahead, go to hopsnews.beer and subscribe to our show. You can go there, hopsnews.beer, find all of our links to our podcasts. Go ahead, leave a review. Hey, if you want to get some merch, you can get it through there, or go to hopsgeeknews.threadless.com. Go to hopsgeeknews on Twitter or Instagram, and make sure you go ahead and follow. Hit that, smash that follow button, y'all. And yeah, we're excited today. This morning, I'll tell you straight up, I have been drinking an obscene amount of beer and alcohol, and it's not happening this morning, though. I'm drinking water. So I'm sorry to disappoint everybody, but I'm drinking water. Lauren, what are you drinking?
Water is important. I'm drinking bean water. So I have a Starbucks homemade blend in my coffee cup, which is my Batu coffee cup from Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, that's right.
I'm not drinking. It's 10 o'clock here. So.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. here. I am, however, going to some breweries today. It is my final couple days in San Antonio, so there's a couple breweries to hit off the list. I will say, I did stumble upon Second Pitch Brewing on Thursday. My friend and I were like, hey, we picked 3 breweries. We're going to go and check them all out. And then we ended up getting there, and they're like, hey, are you here for trivia? And I was like, trivia? When's that start? And they're like, in 10 minutes. So we ended up just staying there. Like, it was a really, really good brewery. The trivia was awesome. I had a really good black IPA there. And I had a good flight. So good West Coast IPA, meet me in the middle. That was really good. Small little tap room out by the airport. But honestly, though, it was a really good brewery, really great vibe. We got to do trivia outside, and it was nice and cool. It wasn't overly hot, and there was a good food truck there. So if you get the chance to go to San Antonio, definitely go to Second Pitch Brewing. It's not a disappointment whatsoever. And then yesterday, I actually got to go up to Austin, Texas, which Austin,
Yes.
I thought you said Boston. It was a really great time. I will say that, like, Austin, it's been a city you got to go to, one that I've been dying to get to. And we scooter ganged it all around the city. I explored the entire city, 6th Street. We went to a place called the Dizzy Rooster, had a beer. And then we got to go to Live Oak, which, funny enough, it was their 25th anniversary. And you know, your boys got the gifts. So expect to get a
Nice.
expect to get a nice Darth Jiggler coming your way, because Rob from Woodland Empire was like, hey, I've always wanted to try this beer. I've always wanted to go there. It's some of the best beer I've ever had. And I was like, son, say less. I got you. So, but their beer was absolutely phenomenal. Even a couple people. So I'm like, obviously the beer connoisseur, like I know nothing, putting that out there. I know nothing, but to my friends here, they don't know even more.
Relative.
Yeah. So they were like, wow, this is the best Hefeweizen I have ever had. Like, they were extremely happy.
You're converting them.
Yes.
Nice.
So I've gotten them to some breweries,
thing.
And some of the people were like, yeah, I'm not really into beer. I don't drink it that much, but this is without a doubt the best. And 3 of them bought 6 packs to go. And so,
woohoo.
Yeah, it was
well
rad. I converted some people who just drink, Michelob Ultras and stuff like that normally. So I like to say I've done my job. And they also were doing like this.
Change their life.
You get a pint glass with your first pour as well. So I ended up getting a pint glass because they were doing that. And it was
that's cool.
Really good time. 25th anniversary. The brewery sits on 22 acres of land, and they have a disc golf course on it.
Wow.
So like you can disc golf, just sit outside on these beautiful trees. Oh man, it was such a great time. I think
that's one that's right by the airport too. It's right by Austin Airport.
It is indeed.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was one that came highly recommended that we didn't make. It just kind of didn't work out because something with the food, and like as soon as we landed, we wanted to go somewhere with food, so we ended up right at Pint House. And then once we were in the heart of Austin, we didn't end up doing Live Oak, but I regret not doing that one. There was a couple others I wanted to do, but if anybody wants any more Austin beer recommendations, head over to youtube.com/hopsnews and go to Beercations. And I did do some other breweries. So between you and I, we should have hit them all up. But we do have a sticker on 6th Street. I put a sticker on one of the bars. I don't remember which bar it was.
I thought about putting one too, but I couldn't. For some reason I didn't. But we did go out to this food truck park that is on Barton Ave, I believe, Barton Street or something like that. And I slapped a sticker right on the gate where the locks, people are putting locks on or whatever, and there's some stickers. So I slapped one there. So we do have some stickers down there.
Yes.
Austin was beautiful.
We posted some of that on the Instagram too.
Oh yeah. It was a beautiful city. We were trying to go to Lazarus Brewing, but the scooters, we got to this point where we couldn't take the scooters on the road without getting hit by cars. So
yeah, and then on the gravel too, you're like,
yeah. So we couldn't do that. However, though, I did go to the toy museum and had a beer there, and I did leave some stickers on their little table in the arcade. So.
Oh, I didn't even think to do that.
Yeah,
nice.
I just casually dropped a few stickers there, and hopefully somebody picked them up and discovered us from there, because that place is pretty cool. Nice little small off to the side of the road. We just happened upon it. Like, we were just riding our scooters around, and I look over and I was like, wow, bar, toy, arcade, museum. I was like, guys, I need to go in there. And so a couple of us went in there, had a beer. I was playing some pinball, and yeah, it was a good time.
I'm so glad you went in there. If there was one thing I was going to say you had to do, I feel like it was that. Because I mean, it's so tiny, but like we were drinking beer in there, and like, I mean, we must have circled the thing 5 times, and you find something new every single time. It's like you can't stop finding toys and getting nostalgic, and they're totally cool with you taking pictures and video too. So it's like we're like texting our siblings and look at this toy we had when we were little. So yeah, I thought that place was amazing. And that I had never heard of it. Ian was the one that had recommended it. And when we went, because my husband and I went with another couple, and it was their anniversary, and he told the guy there that it was his anniversary, and he let him pick out a free thing of cards.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is why, yeah, Marge did not care at all, but Ian was stoked.
Coincidentally, today's my anniversary, funny enough. So
Oh, you should have missed it by one day.
should
You
have.
gotten
I
some
know.
free cards.
Well, it was. Yeah, I could have. The guy was super cool. He gave us some cool recommendations. Man, the contrast though with Austin and San Antonio is like night and day. Like the traffic was a nightmare trying to get into Austin, but the city was gorgeous. But I can rave all day. So
Yeah.
we just recorded it a couple days ago, so I mean nothing's really changed for me as far as what I'm watching or anything. I honestly haven't watched anything. I've just been going to bars and breweries and just being a low life degenerate and enjoying my time here. And Carrie calls it my summer camp. So
That's fun. Well, I did watch another Heat game, so it is playoffs still. We're still in round one.
That's true.
They lost by 1 point, but it was a good game. And I actually started Lucifer the other night, so I've
Carrie
gotten
watched
multiple
that,
people
actually.
recommend it. I'm not completely hooked yet, but it is, I guess, kind of fun. But it's funny because like I'm used to Lucifer in Supernatural, and obviously this is a different Lucifer. And like in the first episode, like somebody he seems to care about dies, and I'm like, why isn't he just healing her? Like, when he doesn't have the same powers as he does in Supernatural. But yeah, it's fun. But they actually made a joke of it. The Lucifer in Supernatural.
yeah.
He was joking when this show first came out. Something came up and he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Move to LA, solve crimes? So there's actually a reference to Lucifer in Supernatural made by Lucifer.
So Carrie was watching it actually, and it gets weird as it ends. It gets really weird. So just a heads up.
It's because it just ended for real, I believe.
Yeah. It did.
It's on Netflix.
And
yeah, that's the only thing I've watched other than Star Wars fun fact videos.
Yeah, I haven't really watched anything new, like I said. So I have a couple pieces of news before we dive into the prequels. Echo has started to film, and Daredevil, Kingpin, and allegedly Jessica Jones is supposedly going to be making her debut in there as well, is what the rumor is.
Oh, don't tease me. I would love Jessica Jones, and it better be Kristen Ritter.
Well, obviously. And aside from that, May 11th will be the making of Moon Knight on, Marvel's Assembled on Disney Plus. So that's all I have.
I only have a couple things too. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is being delayed. It will now come out June 2nd, 2023, and part 2 will be March 29th, 2024. So we have a while on that. Also, Doctor Strange, Egypt is saying they're not going to release it. I didn't read the whole article to see why, because I was scared I was going to get spoilers. But just, I find that interesting.
Yeah.
And then this other piece is not a piece of news, but it's a random clip from Nick Cage that I saw that I thought was worth sharing. So Nick Cage's name is actually Nick Coppola. Many stars do that, where they have fake names and why they change their names. So somebody had asked him, where he got Cage from. And one of the sources of inspiration was actually Luke Cage. And he's like, Power Man. I guess he was a Luke Cage Power Man comic book fan. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's kind of dope.
And that's all.
Yeah, I know he's a big comic fan. He's always talked about how he's also wanted to do Superman, and what could have been with his Superman. What could have been.
That's what all those pictures are.
Yeah. That was his screen testing.
He even grew his hair back to play the role.
Exactly. So we'll see. Maybe eventually. Who knows? Maybe in an alternate reality somewhere if DC fixes themselves.
Hardy har. Yeah, I'm sure Ezra Miller will help with that.
Yeah, oh God.
Let's not go back on that.
Let's dive into something that has an even more slightly convoluted timeline. Let's discuss the prequel trilogy. So we're going to, over the course of our Star Wars month, we're going to hit on the prequels, the originals, I guess the sequels, and then we're going to talk about the cartoons and that kind of stuff. So starting with the prequels, of course, because canonically, yes, we start there. However, back it up though, we have the Old Republic, but yeah.
Yeah. For me, going chronologically helps. Like, this was the first time I did a full watch chronologically, and it made things so much easier to be like, because it's so hard. Like sometimes when I'm watching Mandalorian, it's like I have to remind myself, like, this was right after Endor. So I like that. And I know some people are like, you can't start, watching the new ones and then go to the old ones. Why? You know that
Yeah, why
70s
can't
ones aren't
you?
going to be as good a quality. It's not like you've never seen a movie with good CGI at this point.
Yeah.
So you know it's going to be cheesy no matter what to an extent, but take it for what it is. It came out in 1977.
Exactly.
But before we dive into that, for all of the people who are not like super into Star Wars, because like I was not, I'm getting there. I'm definitely more than the average fan now. But I was always confused when I saw this BBY.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how they do their timeline. So it's kind of like their, before Christ and after death thing.
Yeah.
So Star Wars fans measure time in the universe relative to the Battle of Yavin, which was the clash that led to the destruction of the first Death Star in A New Hope. So events that take place before that battle are called BBY, before Battle of Yavin, and those that take place after are ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. So if you ever see that, that's what those acronyms are. I did not know. I had to Google that. So that's for all you other people who are not as well versed as myself.
Yeah, it is interesting how they do that. There's a lot of lore to dive in with Star Wars. You can spend more than just a month on it because, like I mentioned, you have the Old Republic you can get through. However, for the sake of not blowing our load, so to speak, on all the Star Wars too soon, we're just going to hit the movies and the things that are more to the casual fan, I guess. So we'll start with episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which was released May 19th, 1999. It was actually obviously the 4th movie released in the Star Wars franchise, and it was written and directed by George Lucas with a budget of $115 million, and it grossed $1.27 billion in the box office. I remember seeing this movie at midnight. I was 9 years old. I went with my dad and our neighbor because they were big Star Wars nerds and I was getting into it. And so we went to the midnight showing and oh my God, I loved it. I loved this movie as a kid. It's everything you want as a kid. So diving into the plot real quick, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace is a 1999 American epic space opera film written and directed by George Lucas. It is produced by Lucasfilm and distributed by 20th Century Fox. It stars Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ian McDiarmid, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Pernilla August, and Frank Oz. It's set 32 years before the original trilogy during the era of the Galactic Republic, and the plot follows Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi as they try to protect Queen Padme Amidala of Naboo in hopes of securing a peaceful end to an interplanetary trade dispute. Along the way, they pick up a little orphan Annie out there in Tatooine because Qui-Gon's stupid. That's why. And this becomes Anakin Skywalker, who's a young slave with unusually strong natural powers, or medichlorians, if you will. And then they battle Darth Maul along the way. So that's kind of the scene that is set for you. Before we give our thoughts on the movie, Lauren, I know you got some fun facts. Roll the tape.
I do. So before the movie came out, people were actually buying tickets to other movies just to see the trailer. So this is what life was like before YouTube. Ewan McGregor's lightsaber noises had to be removed, which apparently is a common thing because I'll skip ahead to episode 2. When Hayden showed up, same thing. They had to remove his. So I love that they all do that. Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman looked so alike that even their moms had a hard time telling them who was who on set. And usually only the.
Sorry, I had no idea. No, I had no idea Keira Knightley was in this film for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, well, they do a very good job of. I didn't realize how much they look alike too, because you're just so used to seeing them in, Pirates versus, Thor or whatever. So Natalie Portman actually missed the premiere because she was studying for her high school finals. So that's how young she was when she did this.
That's crazy.
Only 4 actors from the original trilogy actually came back to reprise their roles. One, Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, Kenny Baker, who's R2, Ian McDiarmid, who is Palpatine, and he was actually only 37 in episode 6. So when he came to do Return of the Jedi, the age worked out well, and they didn't have to, do any makeup or anything, at least for that one. And then Frank Oz, who does Yoda. The braid that you see, I did not know this before. So that long, ridiculous braid that's like a rat tail kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So that is, every Padawan has that, and it gets cut by the Jedi Master with the lightsaber when the Jedi Master feels that the Padawan is ready to be a Jedi. This one I've mentioned before, this little Easter egg. I love the ET Easter egg that you see in the Senate. You see the little ETs cheering. So there's, and Steven Spielberg is involved in Star Wars too. So this kind of makes sense that you see them in the Senate, but in ET, you also see when ET on Halloween sees a kid dressed as Yoda, he goes home. And they did name the ETs. They're Asogians. I don't think it's actually in the movie, but I don't know where that came from, but I did find that. It's not even on the ride at Universal, but we now know ET's species. We don't know Yoda's species, but we know ET's species. Qui-Gon's communicator was actually a woman's razor that they like took pieces off of. And it's funny because I saw a picture of it and it straight up looks like a razor without like the actual razor on it. The voice of Watto is the actor based his voice on Fagon from Oliver Twist, who is played by Alec Guinness, who is the original Obi-Wan.
Ooh.
Lucas actually had this main story in his head when writing A New Hope, but he waited until he felt the CGI was good enough to make the origin of Vader. So he started writing the actual movie in 1993, which is a bit of a coincidence maybe that Jurassic Park came out that year too. I don't know. And then production began in 94 and filming in 97. This was the first movie Lucas directed since the original Star Wars in 1977. Ewan McGregor compared seeing R2 to meeting the Queen. He said he saw R2 and was just like,
I mean, it might as well be, right?
Shit. Yeah. Every time Ewan was behind Liam, George Lucas would reassure him that, your character is in character development. Like, it's okay that you're behind him. And he's like, yeah, I get it. He knows who Obi-Wan is. He knows he's going to have a bigger role in the second one. In episode 4, Antilles Wedge is in it. And did you know that's Ewan McGregor's uncle?
Yeah, that was like a big thing. Yeah.
I thought that I had no clue. See, this is how little I knew. And now I'm learning all this. But yeah, he said when they went to see the movie, he said it's the first movie he really remembers seeing in theaters. And him and his brother went to go see Uncle Dennis, and the movie blew his mind. So Ewan McGregor always watches Alec Guinness before he starts being Obi-Wan. And he said he did this more so for episode 3 because, each movie he's becoming more like the older version of Obi-Wan. And I wonder if he did it again for the Obi-Wan show. We'll find out. Well, actually, I don't know if we'll find out. Maybe if he says it in an interview. My last fun fact is Fox told Lucas he was going to ruin the franchise and nobody wanted this story by making episode 1.
Boy, were they wrong. Boy, were they wrong.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand that there's a lot of prequel hate. I understand that. Like, yes, The Phantom Menace is a very flawed film. They should have started it with Anakin being older and then fall that way, start it with the Clone Wars. That way you get more of that. But it is what it is. But it also did a lot of cool stuff. Like it gave us Duel of the Fates. And we got this amazing lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Darth Maul. Like when that door opened and Darth Maul hits him with the double lightsabers, I was like, 9-year-old me, I was losing my shit. I was like, oh my God, you can do that. It was insane. And so like the phenomena behind Star Wars and that movie coming out, like, do you remember all the Pepsi cans, like having all of the Star Wars characters on them? They had like vending machines. No, I remember
going to Taco Bell and the little kid was everywhere. But I mean, I didn't watch this movie till years later. And even then I was like half-assed watching it while I was studying for law school. My boyfriend was watching it. And then I didn't watch it legit until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I kind of ignored all of the merchandising, but I do remember it being all over Taco Bell.
But like, it's crazy. I do remember all this. Like I had the Legos, I had Anakin's pod racer, I had the Naboo starfighter, I had all the Legos. And like I said,
you still have them.
I do. Well, I mean, I don't have like the 90s version of them because my parents lost those, got rid of them, all that stuff.
No.
Yeah. But
my mom threw away my New Kids on the Block tapes. I feel your pain.
Our parents just don't understand, man. I'm telling you. But honestly, though, like I remember it was crazy. So you had the vending machines with Anakin Skywalker and different characters on them. I remember the sodas, like drinking Pepsis, and they had like Jar Jar Binks was on there, Anakin Skywalker was on there, Obi-Wan Kenobi was on there. Star Wars was freaking everywhere, and people were so hyped up. It was my real first time immersing into the pop culture world. That would get me really going, because again, I was 9. So the movie it starts off with something funny that you never see again. And do you remember that scene where they pretty much speed run with the Force? They just like, zoop, I'm out.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So there's a scene in the hallway in the beginning, and they're like, we need to get out of here because the droid's in the smoke. And so they like Force run, but they move like the Flash. That. And you never see that used again.
Why don't I remember that?
How many times could that have helped them? Funny. Especially Obi-Wan.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that quite often with some of it too, especially when you go back and forth from the cartoons to reality, not reality, but you're like, well, why don't they just do this in this situation? And why? I mean, but you could drive yourself nuts doing that. You can do that in superhero shows too,
without a doubt. So,
I was it 99? I was a freshman in high school when this came out. I don't know a single person who saw it. None of us were into it. But now everybody's getting into it.
Now everybody's into it. Yeah, I mean, for sure. But I love the pod. I do personally. Me personally, some of my favorite scenes are that pod racing sequence. I get it. Cheska Sebulba. Like, it was stupid. What did it do for anybody? Nothing. But again, 9-year-old me is like, this is the greatest thing ever.
You know what, though? I think that they really wanted to paint Anakin as to who he was. And I watched a bunch of videos last night because I had to stay up really late because I was hosting a drama party for my daughter. And there's a lot of teenage kids singing Backstreet Boys in my living room. So I'm watching Star Wars videos. And I came across some good ones where they point some stuff out. And it was couple of very interesting comparisons where they're comparing Anakin to Satan, and there's a lot of historical things they're comparing it to, and it makes sense. He's the chosen one, but he wants more power, and that's like his falling grace, so to speak. And then he ends up in Mustafar, which is like hell.
That's true.
And so there's a lot of like comparisons there, and obviously with the Roman Empire falling, and Palpatine getting, I know I'm jumping ahead a movie or two, but Palpatine getting power, that's straight out of Hitler. The way he convinces the Senate to give him temporary control to handle this situation. So there's so much more depth to these movies than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
But I think building Anakin as a little kid first and seeing like he had daddy issues, and Qui-Gon was going to be a father figure. And when Qui-Gon died, I think Obi-Wan wasn't ready to be a father figure. And he even says like, you were my brother. Well, he didn't need a brother. He needed a father. And he found that father in Palpatine. And so I almost felt like we didn't get enough Anakin. And that's why you have to watch Clone Wars, because you get more of that character building in it. But I think when Obi-Wan comes out and we see the parallels between Luke and Anakin in episode 1, I think we're going to appreciate episode 1 a little more. Just seeing like that, he's doing the pod racing on top of the thing. And I think we're going to enjoy those parallels.
Well, I fully agree. I mean, all this stuff is really important because you see Anakin and, when they first meet him, he was so enamored with the fact that they were Jedi, right? He was, nobody can kill a Jedi, and wow, you're Jedi. And he was like this little slave boy on Tatooine. And
he's not a slave. He's a person.
Yeah. And he was just so enthralled with the culture of the Jedi and the myth behind them. And so if you look at how he started and then what ends up happening, it's tragic. It's tragic. Come on. I mean, is the film great? I mean, maybe not. I mean, yeah, you have the Gungan stuff, but the Gungan city, all the Gungans were kind of lame. I understand that, but it was important to the story because at this time, Palpatine is just a senator from Naboo. And so his home planet's getting attacked by the Trade Federation. And I mean, of course, he sets this whole thing up, right? Because this is how he sets it all in motion anyways. But you get the droid army that's coming through there, and you get a lot of cool sequences there. Like
Roger.
Yeah, I mean, the Gungans versus the droid army, sure, it wasn't this big grand battle with people that we're kind of used to seeing, but it was clever. And then Naboo was a beautiful city, and that was really cool. And just seeing kind of some of the politics into the Star Wars world as well. And you're also introduced to the culture of the Jedi finally. Like, this is the Jedi, because we're not used to seeing masters and the council and Coruscant and all these other things, because hello, the Jedi are wiped out and there's only one Jedi left at the when 20, 30 years before, you know. So getting to kind of immerse into that culture, it was great, and seeing just how excited Anakin Skywalker was to then where he ends up later on. And I get it also, yeah, maybe having a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old randomly fall in love, it was weird, but they get older. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, and when they're older, the 5-year difference isn't a big deal at all.
Exactly.
But I don't understand why they did that, because, and Lucas even came out and he's like, if I had introduced Anakin as a teenager, it would have been more marketable. But the fact of the matter is like, you could have had him be 9. That's fine. I have no issue with that. And have her be like an assistant. Like, why is she queen at 14? Like, have her be his age, and just like a nod. And then later when they see each other and they're both grown-ups, then it's like, I don't understand that, because it's like, to me, if you meet somebody when they're a kid, like I never realized how creepy Friends is. Like, Richard saw Monica grow up. That'd be like me ending up with, you know, one of my dad's friends. Like, no, ew.
It is very creepy. Well, yeah, no, it's absolutely creepy at that point. However, I will say, what I'm going to say is, as far as the queen, it kind of takes it back to like the feudal times, right? Like, you had young kids being kings, queens, that kind of stuff. So I guess that's kind of the angle they were going for. But I agree. I mean, I agree. Kind of stuff, I do agree there. And what this movie did as far as like CGI and stuff, the CGI for the time in 1999, this was crazy. Like, this was insanely good CGI for the times. And again, it gave us one of the coolest lightsaber battles. We were used to slow moving lightsaber battles. Well, then enters Darth Maul, this mysterious character, the Sith, and they end up having really like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan battling back and forth. It was great. It really was. And that song still slaps. Duel of the Fates. Any Star Wars fan, anybody, you play that song, it's going to get the party going.
Oh, it's recognizable for sure. Yeah.
And it was sad at the end, right?
Do you want to talk about
you mentioned Qui-Gon.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very sad. Do you want to mention the Jar Jar being Sith theory, or do you think that's common knowledge?
Oh, Darth Jar Jar. So the big theory we all know is that Darth Jar Jar Binks is just pretending to be this bumbling idiot who is ultimately this big Sith Lord. Like, he knew what he was doing, putting Palpatine in power and all that stuff. Yeah, it is hilarious.
They were from the same planet. They're both from Naboo.
Yep. So obviously the theory isn't real, but imagine how sick. And I feel bad for the actor though, because the actor, he was like hated on. Him and Jake Lloyd, they got so much hate from fans for their portrayals, and it's like, it's not their fault. They're actors, dude. One's a child. The other is, I'm playing in a Star Wars film. How many of you would straight up, if they were like, this is a character I want you to play, but you get to be in Star Wars, how many of us would take that in a heartbeat? Come on, like, realistically.
Yeah. And when the poor kid was like bullied so much he never acted again.
No, he ended up having like schizophrenia, and like, he is mentally unwell.
That's so sad. I'm like, why? I've heard the little girl from Endgame was bullied too. I mean, it's clearly just people who are jealous, but as a child, how do you...
You're bullying kids. Like, get a fucking life, dude.
Yeah. Ugh. But you see with Jar Jar, like, how he jumps into the water and they say it's a force jump, and then his accidents are just too convenient. It's like, how does anybody be that clumsy and I don't know, they were just going for comedic value, I guess. But it kind of fell flat. Like, that's not slapstick. That's
no.
I don't know. It's defying physics, and I don't know. But one other fun fact. So we've talked about before how Liam Neeson is 6'4", and so they had to make the things taller. And I was under the impression that they messed up and had to then make them taller. And we even joked about it, like, well, does nobody know how tall he is till he shows up? So what it is they had to spend an extra $150,000 because he was taller, and they originally made everything just tall enough for everybody to walk under. So they had to make it a little bit taller than they expected. So they did not have to redo anything. They just had to make it a little bit taller than they expected because he's taller than the average person. But again, 6'4" is not huge. 6'4" is very
That's my height. I'm 6'4".
common tall.
Yeah, I'm literally
Right.
6'4".
My dad's 6'4". It's like I know quite a few people who are 6'4". Like it is tall, but it's not like holy shit, you're tall.
I mean, you think that, yeah, but the amount of people that's what the reaction I get from them is still like, whatever.
Oh.
You're right though. You're right. So obviously this film wraps up with Qui-Gon being killed by Darth Maul, and now like the pyre scene where he's being burned. Qui-Gon now,
Why
or
didn't
Obi-Wan,
he disappear?
because I will get to that. So I'll get to it now. Qui-Gon was studying at the time. He was studying how to become a Force ghost. Nobody knew it. He operated in the gray area. Okay. So Qui-Gon was very much disenfranchised with the Jedi, and he was studying how to become this Force ghost. He never perfected it before he died, but he could still speak through the Force, which is how he found out, which is how he starts talking to Yoda and, passes on this knowledge to Yoda, who then figures it out, and Obi-Wan figures it out and trains and is able to become that Force ghost. So that's why he didn't disappear, is because he hadn't perfected, what happened or any of that kind of stuff at the time. So Qui-Gon's dead.
So you have to study that. You don't just disappear because you're a Jedi and you die.
It's like a training, basically. Okay. So, the ending, Obi-Wan is now with Anakin, and it's like, this is when the story really gets going. And the big party scene, the big, yay, we saved it. Because every Star Wars film, for the most part at this point, well, I guess not every Star Wars film, they like to be upbeat at the end with the first movies.
Yeah.
But then, as we see, so rolling into Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. It was released on May 16th, 2002. It was the 5th movie released, and I was there at midnight. This time I was 12 at least, but it is a 2002 American space opera film, once again directed by George Lucas, and it has all of the same cast crew. It is set 10 years after the Phantom Menace. Thousands of planetary systems are now seceding from the Galactic Republic and joining the newly formed Confederacy of Independent Systems led by former Jedi Master Count Dooku. With the galaxy on the brink of civil war, Obi-Wan Kenobi investigates a mysterious assassination attempt on Senator Padme Amidala, because she's now a senator, not a queen. And this leads him to uncover a clone army who is in the service of the Republic and starts to learn the truth behind the Separatist movement. And at this point, Anakin is now 19 and has become his apprentice. He's assigned to protect Padme, and he obviously develops a secret relationship with her. And this is where the Clone Wars really kicks off. So go ahead. Fun facts.
So this one's pretty common, but it's still fun. Samuel L. Jackson asked for a purple lightsaber so he could find himself in the ending battle scene. Lucas thought it was funny, so he allowed it. And it is now actually considered a color for those with a bit of the dark side in them that are Jedis. It's rumored, and he has said that on the hilt it says "bad motherfucker." When Anakin slaughters all the sand people who killed his mom, you can hear Qui-Gon trying to stop him.
Yes.
Just like Ewan, I mentioned this with Hayden, also made the lightsaber sounds. Unlike other Jedi, Hayden did not get to pick out his lightsaber because he had to use the one that was similar to the one Obi-Wan gave Luke. When Obi-Wan and Anakin enter the sports bar on Coruscant to search for the assassin who's trying to kill Padme, several actors and crew members can actually be spotted, including the voice of Jar Jar Binks, C-3PO, and the R2 handler. When Jango Fett gets his ship... Wait, what? When Jango Fett's fighting Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan hides in that astral field or whatever, that is where Boba learns to do that in the later movies. Remember how he hides?
Yeah.
I didn't write that well. But that was intentional, and then you did get to see him doing that later. Jango Fett, when he hits his head on one of the ships, that was actually a reference. He did that intentionally, and that was a reference to Episode 4 in A New Hope, where a stormtrooper accidentally bangs his head on a door. So they've made a joke about that. The Empire, I said that with Hitler, all the clone troopers were CGI, so there's not a single actual real clone trooper costume in Episode 2. This one's really weird, but I kept finding it everywhere, so I was like, fine, I'll add it. The flies around Watto that you hear are actual flies from the Skywalker Ranch that are buzzing around cow shit. And they were like excited to get to use it. Like they recorded it and then we're like, oh, we can use this now. Yeah. The one drug dealer that's selling death sticks at Obi-Wan Jedi's, and he's like, you don't want to do this. You want to, go on with your life. So that was thrown in there because George Lucas hates cigarettes, and cigarettes are sometimes known as death sticks. So that was a jab at cigarettes. They made Padme a really good shot with the blaster because they wanted to show that's where Leia gets it from. In the older films, you don't see Yoda hold a lightsaber because it was too hard to make a puppet look like he was really holding it. And I feel like I could see that. It'd be like Kermit the Frog holding a lightsaber. I said that one. The voice of Darth Maul in Phantom Menace is not the actual actor. It's the guy. The voice is the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy from Xandar that hates Star-Lord.
Park.
Yeah, so I always think that's interesting. Dooku was originally going to be a girl, but they changed it. However, they then used this Sith in Clone Wars. It's Ventress. So we could have seen Ventress in episode 2, but we didn't. Oh, and another one with Natalie Portman, whenever she was the queen, they used something to make her voice sound darker. So that's not just her changing her voice from when she's queen to when she's Padme.
That's pretty cool.
And those are my fun facts for episode 2.
Yeah, so this is where the acting really takes a left turn, right? So I guess one of George Lucas's biggest flaws were that he was very much driven by his scripts. Like he wouldn't let the actors deviate from his script. Whatever he wrote had to be what they said. And it's detrimental to the film because a lot of the acting clearly in this film is subpar. Like it's not to the actor's fault. They did the best that they could. And it's very evident on the scene where Anakin's in Naboo with Padme, and it's their love, how their relationship forms is kind of all over the place there. And it's not very organic. It's like, what the hell is going on here? This is really creepy. Like I thought about you every night and it tortures me. And it's like, what is going on?
Oh God. Yeah. It's very dramatic. But there was a psychiatrist that came out one time and he did like a whole study on Anakin and said he has like bipolar personality disorder. I mean, he's clearly mentally unstable.
The kid's got issues. Yes. It's not his fault.
In debate. Yeah. Yeah. It's not just the daddy issues thing.
I mean, he goes from being a slave to the person who rescues him is murdered. And like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, in the Jedi, I mean, I'm not going to compare them to slaves by any means, but it's not like they still don't seem to have freedom. They have like so many damn rules. Like it's like deciding to become a nun. It's like you choose this and, it's supposed to be a great honor, but like you lose a lot of freedoms doing so. But it is a choice.
Oh,
He's not a slave being a Jedi.
But the thing, the thing that messes the Jedi up is it's like they're forbidden these attachments and stuff, and it's like this is their downfall. They're not allowed to have these attachments. They're not allowed to do all this stuff, and so it's if you would just let Anakin smash, like come on, well, aliens, they're living beings that have feelings, and so to just basically. The Jedi are the downfall of themselves. Like they are the reason why they fell was because the Jedi were arrogant. They were stuck in their old ways. And this is when you really start to see Anakin and Palpatine kind of formulating their relationship a lot more. He confides in him. And I think the Battle of Geonosis, like that shit was dope. All right. That shit was dope. They're over there. They're in the arena. And next thing you know, like the clone, they just drop in, man. And it's just like all these Jedi are down there fighting now. Like that is what I wanted. I was losing my damn mind. This is amazing. You got all these Jedi, they're sitting there just fighting. And then Mace Windu's like, I don't think so. He ends up cutting Jango Fett's head off there. And man, it was dope. And then the whole battle sequence there, like that is what I wish we had gotten a whole movie of the Clone Wars live action because that was some fine stuff going on. The rest of it, I liked the opening. It's a beautiful film. Once again, what George Lucas does really well is create a beautiful film. Like the opening scene where the plane's coming in and of course it gets blown up and then the whole assassination attempts, all that kind of stuff. But I thought they did a great job, like the Kaminoans going there and seeing all that. And then also Obi-Wan, when he's captured on Geonosis by Count Dooku literally tells him what's going on. He pretty much like lays out what's happening for him, but he doesn't listen.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too as well, because it's like Dooku seemed to have a grasp on reality.
Yeah, Dooku was an apprentice of Yoda and all that, and he was another guy who was disenfranchised with the Jedi. And so I don't think Dooku ever fully wanted to be like the Sith Lord that ruled the galaxy, so to speak. I just think he was just disenfranchised, and he legit cared for Obi-Wan because he was really good friends with Qui-Gon and all that. And that's why he's telling Obi-Wan, like, hey, join me, man. This stuff's going down. You guys are too foolish to see it. So Count Dooku's a bad guy, but I don't think he's like this pure evil guy, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I thought that as soon as he started to say that, I was like, wait a minute. Because like, how different could that have gone if the Jedi had teamed up with Dooku?
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than Dooku and Palpatine. But yeah, no, because it's not a clear, good guy, bad guy situation. And they even mentioned that a few times where they're like, are you sure the Jedi are the good guys? And I think that's why so many people love Ahsoka so much, because she sees that and she wants to do good. And she realizes that neither side is doing good. But yeah, I have a hard time with that. And obviously we see that in The Mandalorian where, Luke gives Grogu a choice. But you can't suppress a human need. And it's not the loving of someone that makes them go dark side. It's using the hate and the fear. And like, if you teach them that they can love and still control hate and fear, because come on, Obi-Wan was sad when Qui-Gon died, even though it's not his, significant other or child or anything. You still care for each other. I mean, Yoda was still sad when people died, but you have to take into account, not everybody's on the same mental health playing field. And then you're suppressing these things and like, I don't know. They need to get some better mental health insurance in Star Wars.
Get some counselors, some chaplains, something up in the Jedi Council, because
especially because everyone's got PTSD too. Well, his mom died in his arms.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he finds out where his mom is. He goes to rescue her, and then it's like the Tusken Raiders who had kidnapped her, and then he slaughters them. Like, I don't blame him for that at all. Like, the dude just found his mom, who he was taken from when he was 9, hadn't seen her in 10 years. And then all of a sudden she's dead and dies in his arms. It's like, no shit. It's tragic. And I thought that sequence was really good by Hayden Christensen, because I thought the emotions he portrayed when he's talking about killing them and slaughtering them all like animals, like I actually thought he did a pretty good job delivering that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing with it, once I was no longer Team Anakin at all, is when he killed the younglings.
That's what pushed you over the edge?
Yeah, that is what pushed me over the edge. Because everything else is like, okay, there's still good in him. It's like, dude, he just slaughtered and like Natalie, Padme doesn't know he just killed a bunch of kids while she's pregnant with their kids. And of course, their kids are going to be Jedis. Come on.
Well, we'll get to that when we get to this next film, because I do have some thoughts there just like you do. So I think this movie, it wasn't great. What I wish they did again was we should have been following along the Clone Wars to kind of give some more reasoning behind why Anakin Skywalker fell to the dark side. And
yeah, we need an episode 2.5.
Yeah. Or, I mean, that's what the Clone Wars did, right? They really expanded on that. So we'll talk about all that stuff when we discuss the animateds.
Okay.
What?
I was going to say the meanest thing I saw on April Fool's. I hate April Fool's so much. Somebody posted that they were doing a live action Clone Wars with Captain Rex. And I was like, you fucking son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah. No, maybe someday. Maybe someday we'll get some live action stuff. But I'd also like to see them go to the Old Republic. Anyways, do you have any other thoughts into Attack of the Clones?
No, I think I'm good.
All right.
Did I?
All right. Revenge of the Sith. We're going to dive into
dun, dun, dun.
Revenge of the Sith, which I have to pull it up. Oh, God.
Well, this movie came out May 19th, 2005. This was obviously the 6th movie in the franchise, and that's all I got.
Yes. So Revenge of the Sith is set 3 years after the onset of the Clone Wars. So when the final, going back real quick to the Clone Wars, something that I thought was really cool was the final scene when you have Palpatine and the Senate, Bail Organa and all them looking over, and all the clones are formed up and getting on ships. Like, that was dope. That was another really good scene. It was powerful.
Mhm.
You're like, oh man, here we go, Clone Wars. And then the Jedi are spread across the galaxy, leading a large-scale war against the Separatists. And this movie actually opens up with the battle on Coruscant there. So Palpatine pretty much was like, hey, come and kidnap me. And so Count Dooku and crew, General Grievous, they all did. And they kidnap Palpatine. So Anakin and Obi-Wan are trying to get him back. They get on the ship. And poor Obi-Wan gets his ass kicked so much. Like, every lightsaber battle, Obi-Wan gets his ass kicked so much. If you go back to the Clone Wars, you get that cool, lightsaber battle, which, hold on, we didn't talk about this real quick. You get a really cool battle sequence, I guess cool, but lightsaber duel. Count Dooku faces off against Anakin and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan gets cut up, and then Anakin loses his arm, and then Yoda pops up. And then freaking Yoda fighting with a lightsaber was something that was like, yo, this man, like, it was the coolest thing on earth at the time. Like, the theater gasped. They were like cheering. It was great. And once again, fast forward here, Anakin kills Count Dooku, cuts his hands off, chops his head off, all that good stuff. And it was at that point that Count Dooku was like, wow, that's when it clicked with him that Palpatine was grooming Anakin this entire time to be his apprentice. Like, if you read the novelization, it's fantastic. And Count Dooku's like, that's when he realized that I'm nothing. Anakin is the true apprentice right now.
He's not even subtle about it at times. Like, sometimes it's just blatantly obvious and nobody seems to pick up on it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
it's like through
sometimes
all
he's
three
just
movies,
blatant.
like, he fucking hates Padme.
Yeah, he really does. He's such a, he really does.
Yeah, and it's like, he feels that hate towards Leia too. I mean, I don't know.
He just hates women, I think. But why don't you go ahead and lead us with some fun facts?
To groom Rey. Okay. So this was the first Star Wars movie to actually have a PG-13 rating, which I thought was really interesting because I guess you think back and it's like there's nothing too gruesome. I guess in this one because of Mustafar got whatever, and were there sex scenes? I don't even think they ever really have sex scenes.
No, you never see him bang.
So if George Lucas wanted something and people would fight back, he would then tell them that it's what Steven Spielberg wants because he was involved in these movies, and then they would do it. As far as lightsabers, I thought that was hilarious. As far as lightsabers, there are many different ones of each. So they had lightweight ones, heavy ones, rubber ones. They had all sorts of different ones. General Grievous's cough that's actually George Lucas coughing.
George
the
Lucas
Millennium
might want to
Falcon
get that checked out.
Yeah. The Millennium Falcon makes a very subtle cameo, but its name in this is the Stellar Envoy. It's almost like blurry, but you can Google it and see it. The script and the action figures identify Anakin and Obi-Wan as using the call signs Red 5 and Red Leader during the opening battle. And Red 5 was also the call sign for Luke Skywalker during the Death Star battle in Episode 4. And Red Leader was the call sign of Wedge Antilles in this same battle, the Death Star battle. And of course, Ewan McGregor is his nephew, so that's cute. The Mustafar fight scene was practiced for months before filming, and their stunt doubles actually didn't get to do too much because Hayden and Ewan did most of it. But they spent like months practicing for it, and the amount of hours they put into that single scene was definitely more than like anything else. Some of the images were from an actual volcano in Italy, Mount Etna, and it was erupting while they were filming. And my last fun fact is baby Luke and Leia were puppets. Which I thought
were
was
they
weird.
really?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I guess
ridiculous.
it was just easier than having real babies on scene. I don't know. That whole birth scene is weird.
It is. So I love this movie. This is my favorite Star Wars movie. Straight up. I'll tell you straight up. It's beautiful. It's tragic. It's sad. You get to see what happens to the Jedi. Like, it's just beautiful. And I just love this Mustafar battle is by far my favorite lightsaber battle. It is just so sad. Like you have these two, and like the final time they see each other is when, Obi-Wan's getting ready to go find Grievous, and he's just like, goodbye, old friend. And you don't know it at the time, but like that's the last time they're going to be together as friends. And it's such sad. And
you were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them! Bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness! I hate you! My brother Anakin! I loved you!
and the fight sequence, God bless, on Mustafar, and they start fighting and they're all over the place. Yeah, I get some people are like, this is way too flashy for Star Wars. Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? But no, it's there's so much hatred from both sides. And even Obi-Wan, he kind of taps into that hate a little bit because he's hurt. And so you kind of get on his side. And Obi-Wan, this is really the first time I think that he unleashes his true like fighting style a bit. And it's just so beautiful. He's on the side while Anakin's on fire and stuff, and he doesn't kill him because he figures that he's already dead. And so like he's also extremely mad. So he's like, killing him would just be a mercy, and he doesn't deserve mercy right now because he's so hurt.
I think he also doesn't want to do the final blow. He doesn't want to do that, I think. I mean, like fighting's one thing, but then going up to like literally, stab him in the heart or whatever, I think that's because he was more so defending himself before.
So it was, according to the novel, basically is Obi-Wan was a mixture of mad, and he also sensed Palpatine showing up very soon. So he was like, I have no time to go down there, kill him and go. But he was obviously, he goes from like, I can't do this, don't make me do this, to Yoda, to he's just so heartbroken. He's like, you were my brother, I loved you, how could you do this? But I will say one thing that they don't do very well is, like you had mentioned previously, you don't really get any background for why Anakin just all of a sudden starts killing younglings. Like it's Mace Windu and crew shows up. Palpatine takes out all these Jedi. Mace Windu defeats Palpatine, which is a really cool lightsaber battle sequence. Anakin shows up. He's like, I need him. He's got to face trial. But he's like, bro, he's a Sith Lord. Like, what the hell? Because Anakin's having these dreams about Padme dying. And again, the theory is that Palpatine was kind of manipulating the Force, so he had these dreams to kind of, do that. But then also, like, sometimes Jedi have these premonitions, but they don't know exactly what they mean. And so it's even more tragic at the fact that Anakin caused Padme's death in the end. He was so worried about her dying. He's the one who basically killed her. And the theory that I subscribe to is that Palpatine, he took her life force to save Anakin. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. And when you told me that, I was like, okay, that makes more sense, because a woman who's just seen her very first child for the first time doesn't die of a broken heart. I'm sorry. No. That's not what happens when you meet your first kid for the first time, especially as a mom. Like, that's the first time you feel real love. And so you're not going to die of a broken heart right after that. So them taking the life force from her makes way more sense. But that scene where Mace Windu supposedly died, who knows? We might see him show back up. You really see Anakin struggle there with the, oh my God, what have I done? But then it's like he just gives in after that.
He just like flips the switch. Yeah.
Yeah. He has like this like struggle. And in that moment, it's like if they had gone more with that, like, what have I done? What am I doing? But then when he goes in to kill the youngling, he's just straight up like evil. It's like he's possessed.
Yeah. And then from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. It's like, but you don't really see why he thinks that. Like, but Anakin,
And why'd they kill
why?
the kids? Like, can't you take the kids and prep the kids to be Siths rather than Jedi?
Well, so
like, they're still young and malleable.
That's kind of what they do with some of the Inquisitors, right? Some of the Inquisitors were former Jedi who they don't train to be Sith apprentice because that would break the rule of two, but they just use them. And then when the Inquisitors have no more use for them, they just kill them.
I can't wait to see those lightsabers in Obi-Wan. You think they'll have the full-on like flying Inquisitor lightsabers?
I think so. I think they definitely will.
That'll be cool. Like, does your
it'd be
lightsaber
so
do that?
rad.
We need that line too.
It'd be so rad.
Yeah.
And again, I don't really buy in to the fact that it's like, okay, what have I done to let me march on the temple and start killing everybody? Like, I don't really, because that's not who Anakin is. And even angry, like, that's not who Anakin is. Even if you're subscribing to the dark side, like, I don't, it was too fast. It was too fast of a transition for me at that point.
Right. And not to jump ahead to the new movies, but I'm going to jump ahead to the new movies. With them bringing Palpatine back, though, I feel like it messed up a lot because they emphasized in the first 3 episodes many times how he is the chosen one.
Yeah.
And he does end Palpatine, so we think, and end the Sith, so he fulfills his prophecy as the chosen one. But then they went and brought Palpatine back.
Yeah, so don't even get me started. I will cross that bridge when I get there. I will cross that bridge when we get there. Once again, this is by far my favorite Star Wars film. I get it. It's not perfect, but it's so it's so sad. Like, it's sad. Like, the Empire rises. You get the really cool sequence where you get to see him getting his Darth Vader armor, and Palpatine purposely made this armor to keep Anakin down, because he knew he would be stronger than him, and he lost a lot of his power when he got cut up. And so he purposely makes this to keep him in pain and all this. It's super fucked up. It's super tragic, man. Like, the story of Anakin Skywalker is by far my favorite because it's so sad. And
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say in episode 3, they actually made his helmet heavier than it should be because they wanted it to not look natural to walk in yet.
Yeah, I mean,
like, he was
definitely
still
makes
struggling
sense.
with it.
You kind of like, when they put that on, you hear his breath for the first time. I got chills.
Mm-hmm.
Just chills.
Yeah, that is a good scene.
And every single time I see it, I get chills. And it's just my favorite. It's just my favorite. But do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's about it. I don't know. I guess we can sprinkle in some of the comics. I've only started reading the current run with Darth Vader, and I do like that it goes more into that and more of his struggle and more of his like he's looking, I forget what he's
for
looking
answers,
for, but he finds
basically
a bunch of people that are, he's looking for answers. Yes. And he finds a bunch of people that are like fighting to avenge Padme and Anakin's death. And they all think that Anakin is dead. And it's very interesting to see that struggle. And he's looking for Padme's grave and whatnot.
Yeah, he actually finds it too. And it's sad. And once again, he finds those people. Yeah. And everyone thinks Anakin's dead. There's a couple people like Tarkin who Tarkin knows who Darth Vader is, but he never says it out loud. And yeah, I mean, everyone at that point, it's kind of crazy how fast, because it's 20 years in between films, right? Like from 3 to 4. And so it's kind of crazy how in 20 years, everybody just forgets the Jedi even existed. It's like, this is a myth. It's a myth. It's like, really though? Like, that's crazy. And
but I mean, if you have kids, if they were just kids then, and these are now grown adults and they're just hearing these stories, it's you're on to the next thing. It's crazy how things change. And if your whole day to day has changed, that past is just gone. It's like, AIM. it's
just gone. It's weird. And so, yeah, it's the lore, the prequels, love them or hate them. The prequels set up the foundation and to, expand on this Skywalker story, which is a tragic one. Like, you get the backstory into why Darth Vader is who he is, all that stuff. So you even get a cool battle sequence between Yoda and Palpatine once again, which is a really, really cool battle sequence in this film. Like the lightsaber scenes, the lightsaber fights, I always love them. Yeah, they're not clunky and slow like the old times, but they still deliver. And It's such a good movie. Such a good movie. I love these movies. Next week, should we do the animated films since they kind of take place before the original trilogy kicks off? Is that what we should do next week?
Oh, we could do that. Do Clone Wars and Rebels?
Yeah, Clone Wars, Rebels, and then dive into Rogue One a little bit.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So next week, that's what we're going to do. Next week, we're going to be chatting probably with Sean from Metalcore Nerds. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about Clone Wars, Rebels, Rogue One, and to set the scene for the original trilogy. So make sure you go ahead, share this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what your thoughts on the prequels are. Let us know what you love, what you hate. And yeah, may the Force be with you all.
Obi-Wan. There's good in him. I know there's still.
Lord Vader, can you hear me?
Yes, Master. Where is Padme? Is she safe? Is she all right?
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
I couldn't have. She was alive. I felt it.
This has been a Hops News production. You can find Hops News on all your favorite podcasts and social media platforms at Hops News. Cheers.